What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today is Thursday, April 29th. And every Thursday, we talk LAFC. We talk the black and gold. Obviously, LAFC come off of getting a tie, actually, against the Sounders. It felt like a win because they were without Carlos Vela and Diego Rossi. And here to help me talk LAFC, all things LAFC, we got Alicia Rodriguez. Alicia, how you doing?
Doing well, Gio. How are you?
Pretty good. I got a lot going on. The NFL draft is today. I don't know if you keep up with that, but that's been going there. It's been going there. So Trevor Lawrence got picked number 1. Are you a football fan? Are you an NFL fan?
Vaguely. I grew up a Lions fan, so obviously I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the NFL. But I actually have been doing some work on behind the scenes on the draft tonight. So yeah, I'm in tune with what's going on a little bit as well, even though it's not usually my usual beat.
Yeah. Do you guys? I don't know if you're gonna know. Do you guys still have Matt Patricia as the head coach? I don't know.
No, they got Dan Campbell, who had a truly insane opening press conference talking about how he wanted his players to like kick and punch and bite and like do anything for the team, which I think in some respects makes a lot of sense. Is like you want to instill a really competitive mindset, but it came across as way too strong, and so he got mocked right away for it. So kind of par for the course with the Lions.
Yeah, the Lions, man. I've been to Detroit a couple of times. The stadium, what is it, Ford Field, I believe it's called. Mm-hmm. The stadium looks nice. That whole little downtown area with the Detroit Tigers are right there, and then I think they just put the basketball team downtown too, right?
Yeah, the basketball and the Pistons and the Red Wings play together in Little Caesars Arena.
There we go. I was going to say pizza, but yeah, no. It's a beautiful downtown. It's not that big, but it's beautiful and Motor City, But we're here to talk some soccer. Let's talk some soccer. Have you been watching the CCL Champions League by any chance?
Here and there, bits and pieces. But last night was pretty crazy, but I didn't see the full games. But there was a lot of stuff to talk about last night for sure.
Yeah, I didn't see that. I was watching the Portland Timbers and America game, and it looked like the Portland Timbers were getting chances, and then I was like, all right, I'm not gonna, I don't think they're gonna score. It changed or turned it off, changed it like in the 80th minute, and then I look at my notifications. They get the PK and they tie it 1-1, and I was like, wow, what a game.
Yeah, it was. It's setting up to be pretty interesting for the return leg, which I think is what you definitely want. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some LAFC. Obviously, they came off the impressive tie against the Seattle Sounders, a 1-1 tie. It was interesting, right? Because they, like I said, they had no Carlos Vela, no Diego Rossi. The lineup they went, I thought it was initially a 4-4-2 because that's how it came up to us in Instagram or Twitter, wherever I saw it. But it was actually a 4-3-3. The three up top were Mahala, Cifuentes, and Corey Baird, and obviously you had the regular starters in the midfield. You got Latif Blessing, Atuesta, and Kay. And then Marco Farfan started because Tristan Blackmon, who was health and safety protocols. Jesus Murillo, obviously Eddie Segura, and Diego Palacios, and of course Pablo Cisneros. What were all thoughts of the lineup? Obviously, it was just pretty much out of necessity, but in the first half of this game.
Yeah, it was like you said, there was a couple spots that they just kind of had to plug in players, but we got to see Marco Farfan for the first time with LAFC. I thought he looked pretty good. Bob thought he looked pretty good. Apparently that's a controversial statement. Some of the fans didn't think he looked that good, but I think he looked a lot better than the rotating cast that LAFC had last season when they didn't have Blackmon in there. So I think that's automatically an upgrade in my book. And then Cifuentes was playing as a false 9, which was pretty interesting. So I'm getting involved in the attack. I think that if there was any midfielder that you would think would be a good choice to move up to the forward line, it would be him. So I think that there was some logic behind it, but it was a new wrinkle, something we hadn't seen before. I think largely it came down to just options, and Bob wanted to use somebody who had experience playing in big games, and who could, kind of play a new position on the fly. But I also think that there's probably a chance that he wanted to show something a little different to the Sounders as well, and kind of introduce a wrinkle under the circumstances. And, the forward line didn't score, which is unusual for this team, but I think they played, reasonably well considering they were kind of scrambling a little bit. And like I said, had a midfielder playing as a false nine in a new kind of setup for this team.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole team did a hell of a job. Just the way they competed, obviously against a tough Seattle Sounders team, which we were also missing a couple of players, right? But I was very curious to see how the depth of LAFC was going to look like. With all these different new players getting the start, pieces moving around. Obviously, Cifuentes, I thought he looked good up there. In the way he did. He's just a big physical body. And I think. I would like to see him get more playing time, right? Obviously, it gets tough, but we'll have to see. I did ask Bob Bradley earlier today in the press call, and just kind of paraphrase that. Obviously that they have, because I just asked him, I was like, do you see him as a potential? What does he have to do to be a starter, or do you see him coming off the bench? And didn't really quite answer my question. Pretty much just said he's been doing a good job. I don't remember everything he said, but I think Cifuentes, and I was just talking to a couple other people, a lot of people are really high on what he can do, and you're really seeing how versatile he really is, right? To throw him up there up top. But also on the other hand, you have Latif Blessing, Eduardo Tosta, Mark Anthony Kaye. I want to talk about Eduardo Tosta's goal in the second minute. It was I guess a controversial goal if you're on the Sounders side, because the goalkeeper, and was it Nuhu, I believe, the defender from Seattle, he was gonna lay down behind the line, behind the wall, excuse me, just in case someone, Eduardo Tosta was gonna kick it underneath, and the goalkeeper waved him off, and of course, what do you know? Eduardo Tosta scores, and right, the score is the only goal that LAFC was able to score, and I have the video here, so I just want to play it real quick.
Ball in Stefan Fry, second minute. And Eduard Atuesta takes advantage of no block lying behind the wall. Brilliant execution. Seattle fallible. And the goalkeeper's decision not to utilize Nuhu in that role has helped LAFC take the earliest of leads here. Eduard Atuesta with his regular goal against the Sounders.
Well, now Atuesta recognizing that there is no player from the Seattle Sounders laying behind the wall here, and just hits it with the right pace to make sure that everyone in that wall jumps. But Stefan Fry has to be questioned here. Look at the target goalpost cam. Nuhu immediately after this one wanting to have words with Stefan Fry.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the only goal that the LAFC scored. So if he would have laid down to Nuhu, but glad he didn't, right? If you're LAFC, and Eduardo Tosta took full advantage of that, and then you also I like that Eduardo Tosta went that route, and he was able to essentially carry the team, when it came to the scoreboard, and I like that it was after the week of the conversations of his contract extension and everything, and just pretty much just riding a wave. What were your thoughts on Eduardo Tosta in this game?
Yeah, he was named man of the match, and I don't think it was only for the goal. I think he really did have a masterful performance on the day. The goal was super clever. I will say, personally, I have a preference against putting a person down on the ground behind a wall, just because I think it's the most embarrassing. It's just super embarrassing to have to be the person who's okay, you lay down and take the shot.
Everybody's doing it though.
I know,
it's the thing now. Everybody's doing it.
It looks ridiculous to me, but obviously in this case, it would have probably helped quite a bit. But even Brian Schmetzer was like, well, we didn't, we don't typically put players down on the floor, so that's on me, kind of thing. So didn't try to take the blame off of the players for not doing it. But it sounds like he's probably going to be doing it from now on. But no, I think Atuesta was really sharp. He's had some ups and downs, I think, over the years against the Sounders in particular, and on a day in which I think he kind of understood that he had to be the key guy. He stepped up, and I think he really did a good job overall. And I think given the players that were available and the fact that LAFC was missing most of its, primary firepower, I think a draw is a perfectly good result against the Sounders. I think that both teams came away feeling like that was a deserved result, and I think they played to a stalemate on the day. But I think Atuesta was really, really strong.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got points, right? You got points without, like I said, Carlos Vela and Diego Rossi, and you're free LAFC. That's what you wanted to do. I didn't know how this game was going to shape out for them, but they took advantage of their one opportunity that they had to score on goal. So we saw that. I think also like the thing that I was interested, I was like, why did so many players have injuries or weren't able to play? I know Danny Masovsky wasn't available. Corey Baird, he had to leave the game early because of his back. So I'm just like, are they just going too hard in practice? Or it just happens to be, whatever the case is, right? But the good thing is LAFC is going to have Diego Rossi available today. This weekend. Bob Bradley talked about that. He confirmed that he's available, and he also confirmed that Carlos Vela is questionable. Obviously, the offense is going to change a little bit because you have a player that's more clinical in Diego Rossi and what we can do. But this is going to be our first time seeing Diego Rossi. So I'm very curious if he's going to be able to play the full 90 minutes or, play like 60 minutes, 70 minutes. I don't know how much time he'll play. But I feel like this is a good game to come back in because they're facing not that big top of an opponent of the Houston Dynamo. So I expect, to see some good out of Diego Rossi. I expect LAFC to win this game. How do you see this game shaping out?
Yeah, on paper, I think LAFC should feel confident going in, but of course, it's their first road game of the season. On the media call today, Paulo Cisniego was asked about the team only winning one road game last year, so that's something that they're going to have to improve this year if they really want to be top contenders. But no, this seems like a pretty good matchup. I think Houston's played reasonably well, but I also think that they have not looked like world beaters in the first 2 weeks. So they're a team that I think can be had, but they also have some, really tricky, impressive attacking players. And so I don't think the defense should just sit on their laurels. I think this is going to test LAFC probably a little bit more than we're expecting. They've got Maxi Arudi, who is a player who you never sort of say, oh, he's a top player in MLS, but he always, comes up with a pretty consistent number of goals no matter where he is. Memo Rodriguez, he scored against LAFC last year. He's already has a goal for the season. And Tyler Pasher, who they picked up out of the USL, which, LAFC has found some success doing themselves. He's looked really good to start the season for Houston. So, I think the defense will get a test in this one. But again, I think, like you said, with Rossi back, I hope that he's good to go and he won't be favoring his hamstring at all. I hope he's fully recovered and really ready to run for as long as he needs to. And I think it's a game that you want to see some points out of from LAFC.
Yeah, no, you hit on a lot of great points. I want to go back to the point of Pablo Cisnegas. He looked a lot more confident. I asked him if him knowing, that he didn't have to compete for his job necessarily, that was part of his that's part of what gave him confidence. But he said no. He said he was coming with a lot of confidence into this year. He worked on a lot of things that made him feel more confident. And obviously, he's produced. Obviously, he's looked really good. And I know it's 2 games, but he's looked really, really good. Right. And I think we had talked about this when Kenneth Vermeer was still around. I was more along the lines of like, hey, you got to stick with one and just ride it out. And obviously, Kenneth Vermeer kind of just made it easy for LAFC, him saying he didn't want to be part of the team. I know it's 2 games, but I'm sold on Pablo Cisnegas being the starter for LAFC. What about you?
I think he's always been a really good shot stopper. Even in kind of good times and bad, like he hasn't had a problem with stopping shots. Like he's a very good shot stopper. His positioning, I think, is really strong. You haven't seen from him goals where he coughs up a rebound and it goes straight to, the player making the trailing run or something like that. Like Tyler Miller did that occasionally. And I think Tyler Miller overall had a pretty strong tenure with LAFC, but he was apt to do that on occasion. Cisniega doesn't do that. I think the big question with Cisniega was in regards to his distribution, his ability to play with his feet. But I think he's improved in that. And to some extent, I think that some people who kind of ride him a little bit harshly, I think they remember what he looked like in 2019, and they haven't seen kind of the development that he's taken over the years. And I think he has grown as a player. I mean, when he joined LAFC, he had not played a first team professional game, right, in his career. So he's kind of blossoming before our eyes. But yeah, I think, is he going to be goalkeeper of the year? I don't know. I don't know if he's at that level, but is he somebody that I think is reliable for a contending team? Yeah, I think he is. And I think, like you said, the confidence in not having to look over his shoulder constantly at the other player competing with him, I think that'll probably help him. I think to some extent having that comfort level is going to be good instead of, we want to breed competition. I think to an extent that's a healthy thing to look for, but I think sometimes it can be counterproductive. And I think we've seen that when it comes to the goalkeepers at LAFC in the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's gonna. I don't know if Pablo Cisnegas is gonna be, like you said, goalkeeper of the year. But if the back line could do its job right, there's gonna be a couple games that Pablo Cisnegas has to save LAFC, from losing a game or whatever. He's gonna have to have a game. He may have to have like a couple number of games in order for LAFC, because right, we know the expectations for this team is championship, right? It's essentially championship or bust, because with all the top talent, the limited amount of turnover that they have, right? So you're going to need a solid goalkeeping performance from Pablo Cisnegas day in and day out, but also the back line, right? Obviously, Tristan Blackmon wasn't able to play this game, but he looks like he's going to be the right back for this season. But also Eddie Segura, Jesus Murillo, and Chiqui Palacios. We know individually that these players are great. How do you think they played so far as a unit? I know there's been change right there on the right back, but how do you think they played as a unit in the defensive end?
So far, so good. Obviously, when it comes to numbers, they've allowed 1 goal in 2 games. I think you would take that on the whole. I know that during the broadcast against the Sounders, when they let in the Sounders goal, the announcers were like, "Oh no, they've only they've only had 3 clean sheets in a ridiculous number of games," something like that. But again, I think in the context of who they were playing and kind of the game state, it's not the end of the world. They still got a result out of it, so I don't think it's something to really panic over. But obviously, this was the group that took them to the CONCACAF Champions League final. So far, the defense, I think, has looked kind of at that level still. So if they can maintain that pace, then I think they're going to be much closer to the 2019 level than they will be to 2020 level. And in 2019, they benefited from not having to worry about injuries too much. And you mentioned that there's a little bit of concern that the injuries are already starting to pile up this year for the team. But if they can stay healthy, I think that'll help a lot. Obviously, there's going to be injuries from time to time, but if you're not losing 2 or 3 starters every game, you can find some cohesion, especially in the back, and really build that chemistry, which I think is absolutely vital when it comes to the defense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, because I think with LAFC, right, because they last year, I think they allowed, I forgot, I don't know the number, but they allowed just as many goals as they scored. It pretty much was about the same number, if I'm not mistaken. But I think you just don't want to have that this season, right? You want to limit the amount of goals you get scored on, right? Obviously, they were without a number of players, so 1-1 tie. It's not probably Cisnegas getting scored. It's not the end of the world. You still got the result, but I think there is going to come a time. I know it's been only 2 games, but they've looked better on defending set pieces. One, because they haven't been scored on, and I think that was the biggest challenge last season. Them defending set pieces and where to be. And I think they did a good job against the Seattle Sounders. But I think I just want to see that moving forward with this LAFC, because I think that was their biggest challenge. And I think if they're able to address that and they're able to do what they do on the defensive end as a unit, then the sky's the limit for this team. If you have a Carlos Vela healthy, if Diego Rossi is healthy, right? Because I think that's going to push this team moving forward. If you're Bob Bradley, I know he said on the press call that he's questionable, so it potentially looks like Carlos Vela may get his first game back against the LA Galaxy. Would you wait for your LAFC to play him against the LA Galaxy?
I mean, if he doesn't seem like he's ready to go, then yeah, I wouldn't necessarily throw him in this week just because you want to avoid him coming back in the rivalry game. I mean, Vela's a big boy. He he's played some big games in his career. I would not be altogether worried about that. And we saw one poor performance from him against the Galaxy over the years, and that was last year when he got hurt coming out of the return to play, and he hadn't played in MLS's back tournament, so he was out of form, and then he got hurt later in the game, and he just didn't look like he was in a rhythm. But aside from that one game in his LAFC career, I mean, he's pretty much been on it every game that he's featured. So I think I would trust him to be ready, for a huge rivalry game like that, even if his counterpart is, scoring at will right now. I don't think that that's going to intimidate him at all. And I just don't think against the Dynamo you necessarily need to rush him if you have like Musovski back, and he's got off to a pretty good start this season. If you have other options available, then I wouldn't, he's your centerpiece. You want him around for a long, long time. So if that means you have to wait another week, I think it's okay.
Yeah, no, you make a good point that he is in form. And I guess that's something I wasn't thinking about last season, right? He wasn't in form, and he played and he ended up getting injured. So I'm with you on that. Give me your thoughts on Mahala. I feel like Mahala has been lights out this year so far and what he's been doing for the team. And I feel like he may be Diego Rossi's replacement whenever Diego Rossi ends up moving. So I just want to know your thoughts on Mahala.
Yeah, I think he's had a good start to the season. I thought him coming off the bench against Austin, I thought he was fantastic. He was thrown into a very difficult situation, having to come in whatever the 21st, 22nd minute of the game, which subs never come on at. And that was a game in which, with no Rossi on the field, with no Vela on the field, the team needed somebody on occasion to like take a shot, right? Like, even if it's not a great look, like try and get a shot on frame and see what happens. And he did that. He was a battler. Like he was trying stuff. I think he's pretty raw. He's much less the finished article than, Rossi was when he arrived at LAFC. Granted, he's several years younger than Rossi was when he arrived, of course, but I think he's showing some growth. And I think that there's reason to have some excitement around him if he can continue to develop and can match up that energy, that willingness to try stuff with production. It can be pretty promising for him this season, and he may end up getting quite a lot of playing time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I think with Mahala, like he's learning, right, from arguably the two best players in the league, Diego Rossi and Carlos Vela, back-to-back Golden Boot winners, right? And I think we haven't seen that of him to be a clinical finisher, but we don't need to see that just yet. But I think that's one thing that we know the production he can do. I know he scored in the CCL, but I think one thing I see if they're going to expect him to be a winger like Diego Rossi and Carlos Vela down the road is how clinical he can be. And I think especially with this offense, I think you're going to need a player that has those talents and has the attributes. And I have like I'm not missing any confidence on Mahala not being able to score, because I think he's learning from the right players and how they do their job. I think, and we've also seen that he's unselfish when he passed that ball to Cifuentes in the first game. I mean, he could have taken the shot, right? But he had a gimme goal to Jose Cifuentes, and you see that. And then I think Bob Bradley has talked about like a lot of the players really like Mahala. He's really well liked amongst the group, and that's just going to give you more playing time, more playing time with the coaching staff and with the players, because they know, like, for whatever reason, if it's Corey Baird or whoever's starting up top with them, you're the next man up, right? And potentially he could potentially break into the lineup depending how things play out for him this season. But yeah, it looks really good for Mahala, and I think they did a really good job scouting on him. The next thing I want to talk about is Carlos Vela's contract extension. There was a lot of things talked about this week, rumors and reports from all different media outlets. Obviously, Bob Bradley was asked, and this is his quote that I got from him. He said, "I don't have any info on that. I don't know where it stands as contract negotiations." Because I think it makes it really interesting, because last week he told us everything about Duarte Tuesta, and it's almost finalized. I think if you don't know the situation with your star player, then they're like, okay, then people could buy into maybe Carlos Vela going to Europe again, or not. But how do you see this? I know it's early, but how do you see this with Carlos Vela and his contract extension?
Yeah, I don't necessarily imagine something's going to be wrapped up anytime soon. He strikes me as the kind of guy that wants to consider his options, and I think there's an outside chance. Not as good as when he first arrived, but I think there's an outside chance he could say, we had a great season. I've had a great tenure here in MLS. I'm done. I'm going to retire and go off into the sunset, and I'm good. The fire that he's shown in playing in MLS, I wouldn't necessarily say at this point that I think he's on the verge of retiring, but I still think it's a possibility for him. He's got a rich life outside the field, let's put it that way. And so, it wouldn't shock me if he walked away, but it also would not shock me whatsoever if he re-signed with LAFC for another couple of years. It's been a very, productive tenure for him. I think he really likes it here. I think he loves living in LA. He gets to be a normal guy and live in a beautiful house with his family. And, I don't see him running to Mexico. I don't see him ever playing in Mexico at this point in his, career. I think there's a chance he could go back to Spain, since his wife is Spanish. But my inclination is he'll probably finish his career with LAFC. And, that could be at the end of, his current contract, or it could be in, a few more years. He's still pretty young, but I think it's all pretty up in the air. And I don't necessarily know that he has a definitive take on what he wants to do at this point either.
Yeah, I think Carlos Vela is a player that's going to weigh all his options out. There's rumors that like Real Betis, where Andres Guardado plays out there, potentially linking up with him. I think LAFC has Carlos Vela under this year, and I think it potentially is a team option after this year. So we'll see. I think Carlos Vela may just see how the season goes with him. And you mentioned a great point. His wife is from Spain, right? We know that Carlos Vela confirmed this, that Barcelona was interested in him, and LAFC didn't want to let him leave a couple of years ago when Carlos Vela was tearing up the league. So I could see one or two things as well. I can see him retiring. I don't know if after this season, because the reason I could see him just being like walking away from the game, because when other players, let's talk about the national team. Carlos Vela has shown no interest in wanting to play the national team. He's like, hey, I've done it. Let the other guys, let the younger guys get the opportunity. But you have players like across the street, like Chicharito. He's like, I haven't closed the door. I still want to play for the national team, right? And you have players like Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm not sure. I think maybe Messi's still playing for Argentina. Zlatan is going to play for Sweden again. So it's like that. I think that's the thing. That's the thing with the Carlos Vela. It's the unknown with him, because you can't predict if he's willing to walk away from the national team, then you got to assume that he could be willing to walk away from potentially LAFC, potentially from playing soccer. But I don't know if it's after this year though. I don't know. And if say a better option comes to him, and I think it will have to depend how LAFC does, right? If LAFC win MLS Cup, then of course, makes sense that Carlos Vela is probably going to stay here and retire. But if for whatever the reason they come up short, I wonder how short they come up. If they lose in the final or they lose in the playoffs, then that there's going to be obviously more rumors and reports and stuff like that, because Carlos Vela, if he still does what he's been doing the last couple of years in the MLS, right, and producing and being clinical and putting teams away, I mean, their interest is going to be around the world for him, because it's Carlos Vela and he's the, in my view, the best player in the league. But he's also very reserved, so he doesn't like talking to the media. So you can't really get a grasp on. I don't think he's unhappy with LAFC, but we never see him and we never get to talk to him. So we don't know if he's like, yeah, LAFC, like we've never heard him like, hey, I want to retire with LAFC. I want to retire with him with the black and gold. We've never heard him say that. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to do that, but we just haven't heard that. There's other players around the league like, hey, I love Los Angeles. I want to stay here, But because of the limited interactions we have with them and how he's sometimes been with his words with the national team, I think there's going to be questions. And if LAFC doesn't lock him up, rather sooner than later, then a lot of those rumors and chatters are gonna come up. And I think there's not only that, there's a lot of pressure with LAFC this season because the goal is to win a championship.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, no doubt. And that the uncertainty, I think, will probably play to an extent in their planning moving forward. But I would say that I think as far as quality of life, I think he can't get a better quality of life than he gets here. And it's not because I live in California and I just love it so much. He's played professionally in England and Spain, which are two of the most soccer crazy, people going through your trash to figure out what your business is. So they can report about it in the news kind of media cultures. We don't have that here. Of course, they also have it in Mexico, which is also why I don't think he's ever going to play in Mexico for any clubs, because I just don't think he has any interest in that. And so while it's possible, and if Barcelona comes back to him and he's on a free and they said, please come join us, okay, he there's a decent chance he might do that. But if it's Real Betis, no offense to them, but he might say, is it worth going back in the fishbowl for that? I don't know. So I think that and that's something that I think superstars in MLS have routinely cited as reasons why they like playing in MLS, is that they can, go to the grocery store and they're not going to get mobbed. And, like I said, people aren't going through their garbage looking for stories and, stalking them and things like that. They can just be regular people. And while as media members, we would like to hear from Carlos a little bit more, to be sure. I think that the laid back atmosphere that we have in our soccer media corps is something that I think he absolutely relishes. So I would not discount that appeal for him in determining what he wants to do next.
Yeah, I think another thing, I think when Kevin Baxter interviewed him in his article, he talked about that him and his wife want to live in Australia. And I don't know how the Australian soccer, but I think if he wants to move to Australia, I don't know how soon he does, but I don't think he's going to go out there and play Australian soccer unless he really wants to, right? But yeah, he said he wants to live out there. So this could potentially be last season with LAFC, depending how they do. And then he may be just, because I don't see him playing, I don't know, for the next 5 years. He doesn't come across that guy, right? He just doesn't come across being that guy that wants to play like a Zlatan, to play till he's 30, 40 years old or whatever. But we'll have to see. And I'm very interested to say if Carlos Vela does stay in the MLS and does end up retiring with the black and gold, would he be the type of person that would want to be part of the league, like coaching or, an advisor and somehow, I see him he posted today about I know it's a sponsorship, but the body armor, the body armor drink and stuff. So I'm very interested to what life after soccer looks like for Carlos Vela.
Yeah. I mean, my inclination, I think he'll walk into the sunset and we'll never hear from him again. I don't think he'll do media.
Yeah.
Do anything. I think he'll retire to a quiet life, but you never know. I mean, maybe he'll miss the competition and want to be a part of it in some way or another. Obviously, he's a bilingual guy. He's a handsome guy, so he could get media work probably pretty easily if he wanted to actually do that. I don't think he does, but another thing that a lot of ex-players get into is coaching kids, and so that's something I could probably see him doing, as not in the scrutiny of the limelight, but helping people and kind of trying to give off the love of the sport to to younger generations, something like that. So, but yeah, we'll have to see. I don't expect to see Carlos Vela, front. I don't expect him to be the next Herculez Gomez or Hugo Sanchez or anything like that. Not at all.
Yeah, Black J Op says, "Let's go LAFC." I can't read the other words he said because those are foul, so I can't read that. So what's up, Black Ops? But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm just very interested to see how his career goes with LAFC. I like seeing him in the MLS. I've loved what he's been able to produce. But I think he's a player that you definitely want him to see walk away with the championship, right? Because he's won the Golden Boot, he's won the MVP. But there's lots of competition against LAFC this season. But looking to next weekend's game, right? I don't want to overlook this game against the Houston Dynamo, but we can assume that they should win. If they don't win, then there's going to be some questions to ask and need to be answered. But obviously, looking at El Tráfico next weekend, it's going to be, I believe it's May 8th. It's at the Dignity Health Sports Park. Let's say Carlos Vela, to your point, you just wait till the LA Galaxy game. Assuming he's in form, he'll be able to play. How do you see that game shaping out with a hot Chicharito, just 2 goals, 5 goals in 2 games, and obviously Vela right now only being able to play 20 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen LAFC and Galaxy games go back and forth over the years. It doesn't always follow the form. A team that is in the tubes have an upset victory, or the one that seems to be even in games, of course, the one that seems to be controlling things ends up losing in the end. So it's hard to really stake a claim on, I guess, either team coming in, but I think it's going to be an extremely competitive game. I think if we thought that the Sounders game this past weekend was a big game for LAFC, even if they, each team had a few players out, I mean, the intensity for this upcoming game against the Galaxy is going to be ratcheted up even more. I think the Galaxy, we can no longer get some gimmies, from the Galaxy when it comes to games against LAFC. They have a coach who I think is competent now and can actually, make changes and can have a coaching duel with Bob Bradley. And I don't think you necessarily walk into that game and say, oh, LAFC is going to kill it. Yeah, they're going to win. No, no problem. It's going to be a battle. And I think given how well the Galaxy have started the season, like you mentioned, both teams have games this weekend, so we'll see how those go. But I think both teams are very much going to be up for it, and it's going to be a big showcase, circle your calendar, talk about this game for a long time afterward kind of occasion.
Yeah, and everything. This would be, if Carlos Vela is healthy and able to play, this would be, I don't know if you know this, but this would be the first matchup, Carlos Vela and Chicharito, because Chicharito did not play in any of the 6-7 El Tráficos that they played last year, right? Because they had to play out of necessity. So I definitely want Carlos Vela to be healthy. I definitely want him to be 100%. Because I think that's what you want. You want 100% on both sides, and you want both teams to compete, because you don't ever want whoever wins to be like, oh yeah, but we only had Carlos Vela 80% of the time, right? You don't want to walk away with that excuse or have any excuse, right, for anybody to say anything. But I think it's going to be an electric game. I think it's going to be exciting. This is a completely different LA Galaxy team that we've seen this year. I know it's only 2 games, but LAFC have shown that they have a lot of depth as well. They've shown that they can hang in there, and the guys that are stepping up are doing a great job. And just like any derby, it's so hard to predict these. It's so hard. I think it's going to be like a high-scoring game, like 3, maybe 4 goals. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring game with all the options that they have and all the different changes. And we know how LAC likes to play. And I think it's also going to become a game of like you talk about, Greg Vanny and Bob Bradley, them dueling out. We've seen Bob Bradley's way and how that works. And I'm also very interested to see on the other side how Greg Vanny does and coaches we've seen him adjust in the second half adjustments and how that game will. We've seen it already change for the LA Galaxy. I want to see how that would look with LAFC and what they're able to do, because I think that's going to be the toughest. We know the Galaxy this Sunday have to go against the Sounders. LAFC have an easier game against the Houston Dynamo. But come next Sunday, or I believe it's Sunday, whenever that game, Saturday or Sunday, I don't recall, May 8th, that game is going to be Saturday. Mm-hmm. I wish we were at full capacity to have all the fans, because those games you need all the fans. You have to have all the fans. But however many fans are let in, I wonder how many LAFC fans they will let in, because LAFC has to get some amount of fans in there,
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure of that, and I don't know if, because of the limited capacity, if they may say, sorry, you're out of luck. You'll have to go to, go to the sports bar or something.
I think you have to allocate for that game. You have to allocate, because I think there was about 6,800 LA Galaxy fans at the same, and that, 6,800 was rocking.
Right.
It was rocking, and it felt like at times it felt like it was packed, but what if it's 6,800? You give 1,000 to LAFC, 2,000,
No, that's way too much.
1,500,
I mean,
500, 500, 50.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of how. I mean, the teams want to. There's some sort of MLS rule in normal times that you have to give. I don't know if it's like a section or two, or a certain percentage of what your capacity is to have that available for the traveling fans. But I mean, in these days, they may. I mean, I would imagine the Galaxy want to keep as few LAFC fans in the stadium as possible,
True.
and given the fact it's so limited, they may be like, okay, here's 20 seats, like have at it, this is what you're getting, and put them like in the back corner or something like that. So we'll see, but yeah, I mean, that's part of the gamesmanship of the rivalry. But yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the exact answer is of how many tickets they actually have to allocate for the opposing side.
No, yeah. 50, I guess. You make a great point on that, but I was expecting a little bit more, because I just like seeing the fans duel it out,
Yeah, as long as everybody stays respectful and there's no offense or whatever.
I should say in a respectful way. I've seen videos of fans throwing blows, and it gets a little out of hand sometimes. But
I mean, the rivalry is a big deal, but there's no reason to be fighting people over sports. Like, that's just stupid.
Alicia, I don't know if you've ever been that passionate over a team. I have, but I never fought anybody. But I get what your point. I get what you're saying, but I feel like that's what makes this rivalry so insane, is that people are willing to fight someone else. That is sports, and it just started, and I think I honestly believe it's the best rivalry in all of Los Angeles, just the way fans and everything you can interact. So definitely looking forward to that game next week. But Alicia, I think that's all the time we have. I think we kind of hit on everything. I don't think we need to do go for a full hour. I mean, we know what's happening. There wasn't too much breaking news. Part of the LAFC is just Carlos Vela. For the people listening, let them know where they can follow you.
Sure. You can find my work on LAFC at angelsonparade.com, and you can find me on Twitter at Soccer Musings.
Guys, definitely give her a follow. She does a great job covering both teams, and definitely LAFC. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to give this a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or wherever you get your music. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Gio Garcia LA, and make sure to follow us on LA Soccer Hub on all our social platforms. And next week, we're actually going to be doing the LAFC podcast on Tuesday. So we're going to switch it up. Instead of Thursday, we're going to go to Tuesday now. So tune in Tuesday, guys. We're going to switch it up Tuesday. So for Alicia, this is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.